Hey guys, it's Maximum Mechanics here. I'm Max, and this is
Braden. Today, guys, we are going to be replacing the pads and rotors on my Ram 1500.
Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Braden here. Today I'm going to show you how to replace brake pads and rotors. It's a straightforward job, but before we get started, let's go over all the tools you're going to need, and let's get right into it. All right, so first thing, we got a pry bar, just in case any parts are stuck on. Head screwdriver, basically the same thing. This has just been acting as a pry bar. Peen hammer. Some of the pads have been stuck on. You kind of get your pry bar in there. You hit them off. They're rusty. Ratchet for the rotor mounts, bigger bolts. Just some slip joint pliers, just in case you need to hold something still. Wire brush right here, just to clean them off a little bit. 3/8 ratchet. This is for your caliper bolts, smaller. Jack stands, so you can secure the car when it's up in the air. Parts cleaner. This is an impact. Then we got a C-clamp. This is to decompress the calipers. Soft blow hammer if you're trying to get the calipers back on, so you don't dent them or anything. Now that you're familiar with the tools needed for this job, let me guide you through the basic steps to get started. The first step is to jack up your vehicle. Ensure that your jack is positioned right on the frame, and that's shown in the picture. And before removing the tire, make sure it's completely off the ground and it'll spin. Now that your tire is off the ground, use a lug nut wrench or an impact drill to remove the lug nuts. Once all your lug nuts are removed, carefully roll the tire away. Now that you have your tire out of the way, you'll have full access to see everything you're going to be working on. You'll see two bolts, one at the top and one at the bottom. They're going to be highlighted in this. And these are going to be your caliper bolts. These are what you need to remove to make your caliper loosen. And you're going to use a ratchet to take these off. And then once you get the two bolts out, you might need a pry bar, some WD-40, depending if you live in the rust belt or not. After you removing the bolts, the caliper will be free to move. I would use a pry bar to carefully pry it off. So if you're reusing your caliper, you don't want to dent the metal at all. You can relieve any tension on the brake line by positioning the caliper in a safe place. Remove the brake pads by using a flathead screwdriver to carefully pry them off. If the pads are old and have become rusty, you may need to use a hammer and a pry bar. You'll take your flathead screwdriver pry bar and put it on there and just tap the end of it with your screwdriver. And once it'll kind of break the seal of the rust, then you can just take them off. Or you might need a pry bar even further, but they should come right off. This picture shows two of my brake pads for my vehicle, a new one and an old one. The brake pad has it's a lot meatier. It's got a lot more material compared to this old one. And when it gets to a certain range, that's when you know. And when it gets to that range, it'll start squeaking. That's your sign to look at them. And if you drive on bad pads like this, you can wreck your car if you can't stop safely, or you're just causing unnecessary wear to your rotors and calipers as well. The next step is going to be to unbolt the caliper mount. As shown in the earlier picture, there are two larger bolts, one at the top, one at the bottom, just like your caliper, and you can use a socket and a ratchet to remove them. The bolts are going to be pretty tight, and they might have Loctite on them if they're straight from the factory. So I would use an impact wrench or a cheater bar. You can add a pipe onto the end of your ratchet to break them free. And once they're free and removed, you can move the mount. Should just come right off. It might be kind of stuck, but it's not going to be on there very good. Remove the rotor. Simply pull it off. If it's stuck due to rust or debris, don't hit your wheel studs or anything. But if it's really stuck, either get some heat to it. You can get some WD-40 or something to try to melt through the rust. Or you can take a bolt, put it where you just took that caliper mount bolt off, put a nut on the other end, hold that side with a wrench, and take your impact gun to the bolt, and it'll vibrate it so much that it'll break your rotor free from any rust. And then you should just be able to tap it off. Just like with your brake pads, we're going to show you the difference in quality between the new and old brake rotors. As you can see in this picture, the new rotor is much thicker, and when you look at your old rotor, if it's rusty, that's not good, and it'll be shiny, like where your brake pads are mounting onto it, it's going to be more shiny because the metal's wearing away. And some of them have a little lip on the outer ring, and if the metal on where your pads are sitting goes below that, that's definitely time to replace those. It'll cause all kinds of wear and tear on your brake system you don't want, make you use more fluid than you should be, make your calipers work extra hard, and just not be able to stop as good. So definitely important to change. Removing everything is just as straightforward as putting it back together. Here are the steps to follow. Step 1 is cleaning the wheel hub. You'll need a bottle of brake cleaner or parts cleaner or carb cleaner, something like that, and a wire brush for the step. Spray the brake cleaner onto the hub and use the wire brush to scrub away rust and debris. Continue scrubbing until the surface is completely clean. You just want a good surface because will ensure that it's ready for installation of new parts. Take your new rotor and put it on the wheel hub. And I like to put a couple of lug nuts, just a little bit on there, so I don't have to worry about the rotor falling off on me. Get your caliper mount. We're gonna get that back and find your 2 bigger bolt holes shown on the screen. Hand thread the bottom one first, I like to do, and then get it somewhat tight with your ratchet. And then the same thing for the top bolt, not all the way tight, somewhat tight. And then take your impact gun and tighten them as much as you can. Now you're going to take your new pads and put the new clips on. The back rotor clips may be more difficult, but if you need, you can take a flat head and gently pry them open as you slide the brake pads in. And then you're going to decompress your caliper using an old brake pad. And then you're going to take a C-clamp, you're going to attach it, you're going to twist as tight as you can. Go like as tight as you can. I'm telling you guys, this will just make it easier because the more further decompressed you are, the easier it is to slide it back over your new pads and rotors. And then just do that, and it might not go on all the way. Take a soft blow hammer or rubber mallet, give it a few taps. You don't want to hit anything with a metal hammer on this. Once it's fully on, you're going to take your 2 caliper bolts, hand thread the top and bottom, no order needed on there. Tighten down with your ratchet as much as possible, but you don't need to go all the way with your impact or cheater pipe on these. Then take your wheel and your tire carefully back over to the where you're working, and I like to roll it into my lap and use my legs to hold it up while I line it up with the lugs. And then once your tire is on them, you're going to hand thread all your lug nuts back on and then start tightening in a star pattern. Tighten them with a lug nut wrench or your impact. And I like to just ugga it a few times on each one, or just as tight as you can with that wrench. And now you have complete new brake systems, your tires back on securely. You're going to get in your car, don't start it up yet. You're going to pump your brake pedal as hard as you can to the floor 5 to 10 times. And this is going to, that caliper that you decompress, it's going to compress it back onto the brake pads and ensure it doesn't slip or anything when you're driving.